Some moments stay with you forever. They sink deep into your mind, waiting, hiding. And then, in the quietest moments, they come back. They claw their way up, whispering reminders of what you did or didn't do. It's been 2 years since that night. 2 years since everything changed. Yet, even now, I wake up to the sound of my heartbeat racing, just like that night. You never think it will happen to you. You never imagine you could be the kind of person who crosses a line. But one day, you do, and then there's no turning back. That night, I remember everything. The way the air felt thick, like something unseen was pressing down on me. The darkness in my room felt different, almost alive. And the way my skin prickled, as if something wasn't right, like I was being watched. Then I felt it. A warm, wet sensation on my hand. Slow, repetitive. The kind of feeling that should be comforting, but it wasn't. At first, I thought it was Max, my dog. He always slept at the foot of the bed, curled up in his usual spot, close enough to remind me that at least someone in this house was there. I noticed him, but as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I realized something. Max was sitting by the door, staring at me. His head was tilted, ears perked, watching me, almost like he wanted to warn me about something. But still, I felt it, that warm, slow, wet sensation against my skin. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and my body turned ice cold. I turned my head, and that's when I saw him. But it wasn't my husband. No, it was someone else. I should have screamed. I should have moved, but I didn't. I couldn't. My body froze in place, while my mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. That night, that was the moment everything started to unravel. That was the moment the truth, the kind of truth that changes you, crawled into my life. But let me start at the beginning. If someone had looked at my life from the outside, they would have said I had it all. A husband, a son, a house that stood tall and proud on a street where neighbors waved but never asked too many questions. It was the kind of place where the grass was trimmed, the windows were clean, and the front door was always locked tight. But inside those walls, it was quiet, too quiet. A silence stretched up between us like an invisible gap, growing wider with each passing year. I was married, but I had never felt more alone. My husband, Daniel, wasn't a bad man. He didn't hit me, yell at me, or cheat, at least not in the traditional sense. But somewhere along the way, he just stopped seeing me. He stopped hearing me. He stopped caring about anything beyond his job, his emails, his endless list of things that had nothing to do with us. It's strange how neglect doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, subtle, like a slow leak in a tire. One day, you're cruising down the road, and the next, you're stranded, wondering when exactly you lost control. I'd sit across from him at dinner, watching him scroll through his phone, answering emails with a furrowed brow. I'd try to talk, but my words would disappear before they reached him. After a while, I stopped trying. I became someone who only existed in the spaces between his priorities. Then there was my son, Caleb, my beautiful, quiet, thoughtful boy who wasn't a boy anymore. He was growing into a man, but I barely knew him. The older he got, the more he pulled away. Always in his room, always out with friends, always somewhere else. I told myself it was normal. Teenagers need space, but deep down, I wondered, was he leaving me behind, just like his father had? Sometimes I'd find him sitting at the kitchen table, earphones in, lost in whatever world existed inside his glowing screen. And for a moment, I'd see a glimpse of the little boy he used to be, the one who ran into my arms, the one who shared his dreams, the one who needed me. But those moments were rare now, almost non-existent. I wanted to reach him. I tried, but the words never came out right. And after a while, I started to wonder if I even knew how to be a mother to him anymore. And then there was Max, my dog, my shadow, my silent companion. He was the only one in that house who truly saw me. He stayed close when everyone else was distant. Loneliness wrapped around me like a second skin. Max would lay his head on my lap when I sat in the dark, staring at nothing. He'd follow me from room to room, like he was afraid that if he let me out of his sight, I might just disappear. And some days, I felt like I already had. Nights were the worst. The bed felt colder, even when Daniel was lying right next to me. There was a time when we would tangle ourselves in each other's arms, fall asleep whispering secrets, tracing our fingers over each other's skin, like we were memorizing a map we never wanted to forget. But that felt like a lifetime ago. Now, we slept with miles between us, separated by invisible walls, by all the things we didn't say. I could have reached out. I could have touched him, but I didn't, because I knew he wouldn't pull me closer. And there's nothing lonelier than lying beside someone who makes you feel like a ghost. So, I learned to live in that silence, to accept it, to shrink myself into something smaller, something easier to ignore until that night. Until I woke up to something warm and wet against my skin and realized I wasn't alone. I don't know what woke me first, the feeling, the sound, or maybe it was something deeper, something instinctual that my body knew before my mind did. I felt it before I understood it, a warm, wet sensation against my skin, slow, rhythmic, almost soothing. Its repetition made my brain fight to wake up, still trapped somewhere between sleep and consciousness. It wasn't alarming at first. It was familiar, safe Max. It had to be Max. He always curled up near my feet, always pressed against me like he could sense the loneliness I never spoke about. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, he'd nuzzle my hand, looking for reassurance, and I'd let him, because in that house, he was the only thing that reminded me I was still real. I reached out, searching for the soft fur I knew so well, but I didn't feel fur. I felt skin. My heart stuttered. My breath caught in my throat. Every part of me froze, like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I forced my eyes open, adjusting to the darkness. That's when I saw it. Someone was there. Someone was kneeling beside my bed, close enough that I could feel the warmth of their presence in the cold, still air. Close enough that when I turned my head, I locked eyes with them. For a split second, I thought it was Daniel, my husband, but something in me knew better. Daniel never looked at me like that anymore. It wasn't my husband. It was Caleb. My son. My son was staring at me. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just looked at me, his expression unreadable, his breathing steady, too calm. I wanted to say something, to ask what he was doing, to demand why he was kneeling beside my bed in the middle of the night, why his hand, his mouth, had been on my skin. But the words got trapped in my throat, stuck somewhere between fear and confusion. Then, he stood up. Just like that, slow, deliberate, without breaking eye contact. He walked out of my room. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart slamming against my ribs. I could hear the blood rushing in my ears, feel the sweat dampening my skin. I wanted to move, to chase after him, to confront him, to tell myself I wasn't imagining what had just happened. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because something in his eyes, something about the way he looked at me, sent a chill down my spine. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. I told myself it was nothing, that I was half asleep, that I had imagined it. But things started changing after that night. Caleb was different. At first, it was subtle. He started watching me more, not in a normal, casual way, but in a way that felt intentional, like he was waiting for something, like he was studying me. I could feel it, even when I was making coffee in the kitchen, folding laundry, or sitting on the couch lost in thought. That quiet presence, his eyes lingering just a little too long before looking away. And then there were the touches, small things that seemed innocent to anyone else. A brush of his fingers against mine when he handed me something, a lingering hand on my shoulder when he passed behind me, the way he sat just a little too close on the couch, his legs pressed against mine. Each time, my stomach twisted with something I couldn't name, something I didn't want to name. Daniel didn't notice a thing. He barely noticed me anymore. If anything, he had become even more distant, buried in his work, his phone, his endless meetings that kept him away from home more and more. He didn't ask how I was doing. He didn't see the way my hands shook when I poured my coffee. He didn't feel the shift in the house, the way the air had changed. And maybe that's why I didn't say anything. Maybe that's why I let it keep happening. I should have put distance between us. I should have said something, set a boundary, made it clear. But there was a part of me, a dark, quiet part, that didn't want to. For the first time in a long, long time, someone was looking at me, really looking at me. And I didn't realize how much I had missed being seen. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Just my imagination playing tricks on me. Just a fluke, a moment caught between sleep and waking. But the feeling didn't go away. It stayed with me, creeping in the quietest moments, wrapping itself around my thoughts like a slow-growing vine. And the worst part was, I started to notice things. It started at dinner, a glance that lasted just a second too long, a gaze that lingered when it should have moved away. I'd feel it before I saw it, the weight of his eyes on me. I'd look up, and there he'd be, Caleb, watching, studying. But not in the way a son looks at his mother, not with the passive disinterest of a teenager forced to endure family meals. No, this was different. It was the way a man looks at a woman, the kind of look that makes your stomach tighten, your breath catch for half a second, before you remind yourself it's nothing. But deep down, I knew it wasn't nothing. Then came the touches, innocent, small, so easy to brush off if I wanted to. A hand grazing mine when he passed the salt, a shoulder brushing against me as we moved through the kitchen, a palm resting for just a second on the small of my back as he squeezed by in the narrow hallway. I told myself I was imagining things, that he didn't mean it, that it was just proximity, that my mind was turning nothing into something because I was starved for attention. But every time it happened, my skin burned where he touched me. And every time, I told myself to ignore it, but I didn't move away. The guilt came in waves. Every night, as I lay beside my husband, his back to me, his breathing steady and peaceful, completely unaware, I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of something I couldn't name. Nothing had happened, not really. Not yet. But wasn't this already a betrayal? Wasn't it wrong to feel something when he looked at me? Wasn't it wrong to let my body react the way it did when his fingers brushed against mine? I was his mother. That should have been enough to sever any possibility of something twisted, something unnatural. But the more I denied it, the more I felt it pressing in on me, tightening around my chest like a vice. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I was so lonely, so desperate for something, anything, that I was making this into something it wasn't. Maybe I was so starved for touch, so unseen by my own husband, that my body was confusing simple, meaningless interactions for something more. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was me. But then why did he keep looking at me like that? One night, I couldn't sleep. The thoughts wouldn't stop spinning, the guilt, the confusion, the questions I was too afraid to say out loud. I went downstairs for water, trying to clear my head, trying to remind myself I was a mother first, that nothing else mattered. And then I heard it, footsteps, slow, measured, behind me. I turned around, and there he was, standing in the dim light, just watching me, silent and still. And I swear, for a moment, the air in that room shifted. Something unsaid stretched between us, pulling tight, making it impossible to breathe. He took a step closer, and I didn't move away. I should have walked away. I should have said something, anything. But I didn't. And that was the moment I knew this wasn't just in my head. It started with the rain. A storm rolled in late that evening, the clouds swallowing the last bit of daylight, turning the sky into an endless stretch of gray. Daniel was gone, another late night at work, another excuse not to be home. I didn't ask when he'd be back. I didn't care. It was just me and Caleb. Just the two of us. The power flickered once, twice, before the house settled into a quiet stillness. The only sounds were the rain outside, the occasional low rumble of thunder, and the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. We sat in the kitchen, the soft glow of a candle between us, casting light and shadows across Caleb's face. He was staring at me again, but this time, I held his gaze. Remember how the conversation started? Something small, something meaningless. But the way he spoke to me, it was different. There was no forced small talk, no distant replies. There was intent behind his words, a slow, measured weight to every sentence, every pause between them. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone was actually listening to me. Really listening. It was innocent. Or at least that's what I told myself. At some point I laughed, a real laugh, a sound I barely recognized coming from my own lips. And then, before I could register it, his hand was on mine. Just a touch. A brief moment of warmth. A simple, easy, harmless thing. But he didn't pull away. And neither did I. My mind screamed at me to move, to stand up, to break the moment before it turned into something we could never take back. But I couldn't. Because my skin was burning where he touched me. Because my pulse was quickening, not with fear, but with something else. Something dangerous. Something I wasn't ready to name. Because for the first time in so long, I felt seen. This wasn't right. I knew that. I knew it with every fiber of my being. But there was another part of me, a darker, more desperate part that whispered, "But does it feel wrong?" What was worse? The silence of an empty marriage, of a love that had long since faded, or this moment. This fleeting, intoxicating second where I felt alive again? The logical part of me fought back. "You're his mother. This is wrong. Stop this before it becomes something you can't take back." But then there was the other voice. The one that had been buried under years of neglect, of loneliness, of aching for something I couldn't have. "But don't you deserve to be wanted? Don't you deserve to feel something again?" Caleb's fingers curled just slightly, as if waiting for me to pull away. As if testing the waters, waiting to see if I would stop him. And I should have. I should have yanked my hand back. I should have ended this before it turned into something we couldn't undo. But I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And in that silence, something shifted between us. I stood up too fast, nearly knocking over the candle between us. My pulse thundered in my ears as I forced a smile, pretending nothing had happened, pretending my hands weren't shaking as I reached for my glass of water, pretending I wasn't unraveling on the inside. Caleb didn't say anything. He didn't push. He just watched me, his expression unreadable, his body language calm. But there was something in his eyes. Something dark. Something knowing. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't the only one fighting this. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling my husband's steady breath beside me. His back was turned, like always. His body just inches from mine, yet he felt 1,000 miles away. I could still feel Caleb's touch on my skin. The ghost of it. The heat. The weight of something that hadn't even happened yet but was dangerously close. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the guilt to consume me, to suffocate any part of me that had wanted that moment in the kitchen, any part of me that had longed for it. But guilt is a funny thing. Because the more I tried to drown it out, the more it whispered back. I told myself it was nothing. But deep down, I knew it was already something. Narration soft, heavy, laced with something unspoken. I don't know what woke me this time. Maybe it was the feeling of being watched. Maybe it was the quiet weight of someone too close. Or maybe, deep down, I was waiting for this to happen. I opened my eyes, and at first I thought I was alone. The room was still, the only movement the slow, steady rise and fall of my husband's back, his body turned away from me like always. But then I felt it. A presence. I wasn't alone. A shiver crept down my spine, my pulse quickening before my mind could even register why. My breath caught in my throat as I turned my head, my eyes adjusting to the dim light. And then I saw him. Caleb. Standing there. Watching me. My son. His expression was unreadable, his face partially illuminated by the glow of the street lamp outside. But his eyes held something I couldn't name. Something that made my stomach clench, made my heart pound against my ribs. I should have spoken. I should have asked what he was doing, why he was there, why he was looking at me like that. But before I could, before I even had the chance to think, he whispered my name. Soft. Low. Almost reverent. Something inside me cracked. I should have gotten up. I should have pushed him away, ended this before it spiraled into something that neither of us could walk away from. But instead, I just lay there. Frozen. Trapped between fear, confusion, and something darker. Something I didn't want to name. He took a step closer. The floor didn't creak beneath his feet. The air between us felt thick, charged, heavy with everything that had been building, everything we had both ignored, denied, buried under silence and stolen glances. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice out in a whisper. Caleb. It was meant to be a warning. It was meant to stop whatever this was before it turned into something we couldn't undo. But my God help me, my voice shook. I barely registered the moment he moved. 1 second there was distance between us, and the next he was close. Too close. I felt his breath against my skin. Warm. Slow. Intentional. I gasped, my entire body tensing, every nerve screaming at me to stop this, to wake up, to do something. But I didn't move. Not when his hand brushed against mine. Not when the silence between us stretched so thin it felt like it might snap. And not when I felt it, the press of his lips just barely against my wrist. So soft. So fleeting. A whisper of a touch. But it shattered something inside me. Reality slammed into me like a wave, knocking the air from my lungs. This was wrong. So wrong. I yanked my hand back like I had been burned, my heart hammering against my ribs. I sat up fast, my breath coming in short, uneven gasps, my mind screaming, "What are you doing? What is he doing? What have you done?" Caleb didn't move. He just stood there, his eyes locked onto mine. Waiting. Like he knew. Like he knew I had let it happen. Like he was waiting for me to admit the thing neither of us had said out loud. I could still feel the ghost of his touch on my skin. Lingering. Searing. Poisoning everything that had once been innocent. And in that moment, I felt sick. sick with guilt, with shame, with something far, far worse. Because beneath all of that, very deep inside me, I felt something else. Something that terrified me more than anything. I wanted it to happen again. I forced myself to move, to breathe, to fix this before it was too late. Go back to your room, Caleb. My voice came out hoarse, barely more than a whisper. I wanted it to be firm. I needed it to be. But it wasn't. We both knew it wasn't. He didn't speak. Didn't argue. He just watched me. And then, finally, after what felt like an eternity, he turned and left. The door closed softly behind him. And I was alone again. Alone with my thoughts. Alone with my shame. Alone with the terrifying realization that everything had just changed. And there was no turning back now. I thought I could pretend. I thought if I didn't acknowledge it, if I buried it deep enough, it would disappear. That it would fade into the background, blending in with all the other regrets I had learned to live with. But some things don't fade. Some things, they linger. They change everything, even when you try to convince yourself they haven't. And the moment I woke up the next morning, I knew everything was different. I could feel it before I even looked at him. The weight. The shift. The unspoken thing that now lived between us, taking up space in the room like a shadow neither of us acknowledged. I kept my eyes on my coffee, on the newspaper I wasn't reading, on anything except him. I felt his gaze. Steady. Patient. Like he was waiting. But I couldn't look at him. Because I knew the moment I did, I would see it. The truth. The truth that I had let something happen. That I had allowed the line to blur. That no matter how much I wanted to pretend nothing had changed, it had. And there was no undoing it now. Daniel didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He never did. He sat at the table with us that morning, sipping his coffee, making small talk about things that didn't matter. The traffic. His schedule. An email he had to answer before noon. He didn't see the way my hands trembled when I lifted my cup to my lips. He didn't feel the way the air had thickened with something dangerous. He didn't hear the silence between me and Caleb, the kind of silence that wasn't just silence, but something far heavier. Something unspoken. And for the first time, I hated him for it. For his blindness. For his absence. For the way he could sit there, completely unaware, while I was drowning in something I didn't know how to escape from. Because if he had been paying attention, if he had seen me sooner, maybe none of this would have happened. Max knew. Of all the things in that house, he was the only one who saw everything. The only one who sensed the shift in the air, who felt the tension thickening with every second that passed. He stared at me, his dark eyes unreadable but full of something that looked too much like knowing. And I couldn't stand it. Because in his eyes, there was no excuse. No rationalization. No blurred lines. Just truth. And the truth was, I had crossed a line. Even if it had only been a moment. Even if it had been just a whisper of touch, a breath too close, a heartbeat out of place, it was still enough to change everything. I tried to act normal. I tried to pretend that I could still move through this house, through this life, without feeling the weight of what had happened pressing down on me. But every glance, every moment alone, every brush of movement in the same room reminded me of that night. The shame. The fear. The weight of what couldn't be undone. I told myself it didn't matter, that I could make this go away if I just ignored it hard enough. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. I never thought it would be me. You hear stories. You judge them from a distance. You tell yourself you'd never cross that line, never become the kind of person who lets things happen, who wants things to happen. But then one day you wake up and realize you're already standing on the other side of that line. And there's no going back. I wish I could say I don't know how I got here. That it was an accident, a mistake. But that would be a lie. I retraced the steps in my mind, trying to pinpoint the moment it all began. Was it the night I woke up and found him beside me, his presence lingering too close? Was it the small touches, the lingering glances? Was it the moment I stopped pulling away? Or was it long before that? Was it the years of neglect, the cold, empty bed, the slow decay of a marriage that had turned into nothing more than two strangers coexisting in the same space? Was it Daniel's absence, his indifference, the way he stopped seeing me not just as his wife, but as a woman, as a person with needs, with feelings, with a soul that was starving for affection? Or was it something darker inside me? The shame is suffocating. It wraps around me, thick and heavy, sinking its claws into my skin. I carry it with me through the day, through the quiet moments where my mind is left unchecked, through the nights when I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling his presence just down the hall. I try to tell myself that nothing happened. Not really. Not yet. But does that make me innocent? Does that make me any less guilty? Because the truth is, I didn't stop it. I let it happen. I let the tension grow, the line blur, the quiet, stolen moments stretch a second too long. And worst of all, I wanted it. Maybe not at first. Maybe not consciously. But somewhere deep inside me, something craved it. The attention. The way his eyes lingered on me when Daniel's never did. The way his touch burned through my skin in a way I hadn't felt in years. And I don't know what terrifies me more, that it happened, or that a part of me doesn't regret it. I tell myself I can fix this. That if I act normal, if I keep my distance, if I pretend hard enough, things will go back to the way they were before. But there's no before. Not anymore. Because every time we're in the same room, I feel it. The awareness. The weight of what's unspoken. The way my body tenses, my breath catches, my pulse betrays me. I used to be able to look at Caleb and see my son. Just my son. Now, all I see is the way his eyes hold mine a second too long. The way his movements are slower, more deliberate. The way he's watching me, waiting for something I can't let happen. The distance I need to create, it's already too late. The damage is done. The thread has already been pulled, and now everything is unraveling. And I don't know how to stop it. I don't have answers. Only regrets. Regret for the things I did. Regret for the things I didn't do. Regret for every moment I should have turned away but didn't. For every time I let myself feel something I had no right to feel. For every second I let slip by without stopping this before it became too real. Because now it is real. And I don't know how to make it not be. I keep asking myself, how did I let this happen? But the truth is, I don't need to ask. I already know. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to end up here. I never thought I'd feel this lost, this tangled in something I don't know how to escape. But now I have to ask, is it really just loneliness that does this to people? Is it the slow, aching decay of a marriage that makes you seek warmth somewhere else? Or is there something darker inside all of us waiting for the right moment, the right weakness, to come clawing to the surface? Have you ever been in a situation where your emotions blurred the lines between right and wrong? Where your heart wanted something your mind screamed against? Do you think loneliness can push people to make choices they never thought they were capable of? I don't know the answers. Maybe you do. Maybe someone out there has been here before and lived to tell the story. Maybe someone out there understands the weight of a choice that can never be undone. If you have thoughts, if you have anything to say, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm just looking for an answer that will make this all feel less like my fault. Or maybe I just don't want to feel like I'm the only one. And if you don't want to miss more jaw-dropping real-life stories, stories that make you question everything you think you know about love, about trust, about loyalty, make sure you subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga. Because the truth is always stranger than fiction. If there's one thing I've learned from this, it's that loneliness is dangerous. It creeps in slow, quiet. It makes you numb. Makes you forget what it felt like to be wanted, to be touched, to be seen. And when you finally do feel those things again, it doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. All that matters is that for a moment, you feel something again. But that's the trap, isn't it? Because some choices, they don't just go away. Some choices sink their teeth into you and never let go. Some choices follow you forever. So if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I just have one thing to say: be careful where your heart leads you. Because some places, you can never come back from.